Hi, I'm Ramirez. I'm down here at Toolroom HQ in their beautiful studio. I'm here to give you a track breakdown of the track that I've done with none other than Smokin Jo, track entitled Inner Mind, out on Toolroom Trax. I'm going to take you through the process of how we work together, what samples and what parts we used, how we put it together. Now, Jo is a really busy girl, so am I. So we didn't have a lot of time to work on this, but fortunately it came together really quickly. So I'm going to take you through the process of how we made this track from start to finish, actually. Starting with, let's take a look at the project itself. Here it is. We are in Ableton 12, actually. Now, you can see here, there's anybody that knows me, that's worked with me before, will recognize my color scheme. Some of the contentious colors that I like to use. Brown for bass. There it is, look. So you can tell that this is one of my projects just by the colors. And very important, actually, to make sure that you color your tracks. Otherwise, you might come back to your track later on and go and sort of not actually be able to find anything. Coloring, naming stuff. All right, we've got that out of the way. Now, I've actually got a template here that I work from every single time. And you can see at the top here, we've got these tracks: drum bus, perc bus, bass bus. These are pre-made, and it's a template that I load up before I start production with somebody. And everything is sort of like, it's already there. I've got the kicks already there, as in the pattern is already created. Things like open hi-hats, the house beat is always going to be the same. So create the pattern, it's already there. And I've also got everything sort of named, ready to just drop samples on, which is a real time-saving thing. As I say, me and Jo, we probably had a day to work on this just to get the idea down. So I had to make my workflow as proficient and as quick as possible, rather than just sort of throwing things in and then dealing with it later. And you can see here, look, we start with the drums at red, pink things are the high stuff, blue things are the musical stuff, brown for bass, yellow is the vocals, and then all of these down here are effects. Now, if we look at this, there's not actually that many tracks. What we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 9, 20 tracks. Now, I've been known to make tracks that have contained hundreds of different audio parts and tracks. So this is a relatively simple one. And the reason being is because we used a lot of samples. Now, of course, Jo is a very, very famous DJ, and she's got an amazing record collections. And she's really good when it comes to the studio time together, because she comes in with lots of different parts. In fact, I put it into a sort of iTunes playlist here. All of the samples are here. Okay. Now that can be anything ranging from beats to, musical samples, stabs, vocal snippets, etc. So this is a real sort of mashup of all of Jo's samples that she brought in, including the music, which we'll go through. Now, the one thing that is original in this is her vocal, which we're going to look at. So we'll start at the top. The kick, again, it's a sample. I'm just going to play you the kick. Let's go through this bit by piece. Now, the kick, I generally like to sample kicks from places, and I would, rather than using a sample pack kick, I get much better results if I take a sample from an actual track. And in this instance, we've got this very thumpy, sort of characterful kick drum, which there's no doubt you can find them in sample packs, but I felt like it was worth taking the sample from the track itself. Now, I won't mention what track it was that we took it from, but yeah, it's taken directly straight from a track. Yeah, and all I've done is I've just isolated that section of kick drum and then triggered it, just dropped it onto my kick drum part, and there it plays it. You can see there's a little bit of bass in there as well, which I didn't mind in this instance because it all adds up, and you'll see how this all works. Next up, we got this percussion here, which is, let's play there. Now I've got this very low filter percussion. This would be a Toolroom sample, tribal drums loop. Okay, and then I've pitched it down. Let's have a look how far I've pitched it down. 48 semitones. That's a lot. So we created a lot of bass in there, and then I've filtered it. If we listen to it without the filter, sounds nasty. We want some dirt and filth. That's the idea with that, to create this sort of rumbling thing underneath there. Then we go on to the boom. What's this saying here? This is a really interesting part that interacts with the bass. You know, let's play a bit of the groove rather than just getting straight into the track breakdown. I mean, some of you might not have even heard the track. So let's just sort of know what we're dealing with. I'm going to play the main drop here. Let's have a look where is the main drop. We're going to go from this part. Let's play this sort of bit of a breakdown into the main drop. Now, there's some plugins missing because I use UAD stuff. So it's not going to sound quite exactly the same. So let's just play a piece of it. So there you go, there's a snippet. It's a big sort of like tribal disco thumper, basically. And it starts with that kick drum, which is very thumpy, which is really poking through there and helping to sort of help that, you know, drive the groove. It really stands out as a frequency. So I can't ever kind of say how important the kick drum is. It starts from the kick drum. You've got to get the kick drum right. And if it's not right, it's like a foundation of a house. It will fall. The house will fall over if you don't have the right foundation. So it starts from there. And then all of these things that we looked at previously, like the filter percussion, all kind of all add together to create this sort of, how dare I say it, a mush of kind of groove. It's like a grumbly, dirty sort of groove that if we take the sample out of this, you'll be able to hear the groove. So it's a big old housey sort of banger, really. Right, so let's get back into it again. Let's break it down track by track, and we'll have a look, and I'll sort of explain to you why I chose these sounds and what I think they bring to the actual track itself. We've got hybrid perk here. Now, this is a sample, I can tell. So let's put this together with this, start building it up. Hear that filtered percussion in there. Now if I take that out, put that back in, it's giving that sort of an air of filth underneath, which I always love. And then we're going down to this tribal beats here. Now this is one of Joe's samples that she brought in. This I think is the main kind of body of the track, and I think this is where we actually started with this track, using these tribal beats. Very sort of Toolroom Traxy, that. But then I built on top of that. I felt like it needed a bit of extra juice and some more sort of filth. So then we put all these together. Now we had to pay very close attention to the key of this because, of course, each one of these sounds being so low and long, they've all got a key to them, as in a note. So we had to make sure that they were changed to fit the bass line. If you add the bass line here, so all of these kind of fit together as one integral piece, including the next bit, which is this beats here. H beats. So if we add this groove to it, this is another sample taken from one of Joe's tracks that she brought in. That's even got some parts in there, bits and of bass in there as well, which I didn't really want that overall clean, very sort of analytical sound. I wanted it all to kind of, you know, mash together and create this groove. But I was very conscious of the key that I was using. And if there was a key that didn't sound quite right, then things might have been transposed, which is a beautiful thing about Ableton, because you can just go in and move them around a little bit, either by semitones or by, you know, fine adjustments of key. So I was paid very close attention to that. I don't think I changed the key of the kick though. I get a lot of questions about kick drums. What key should you put your kick in? Should you be conscious of the key that the kick drum's in? And I honestly think it depends on how long the kick is. If you've got a longer decay, then of course that's going to have a note. But generally I use kick drums that have got a very short transient. So that short transient, you can't really detect the key. Some people will disagree with this. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people kind of adding comments and stuff about it. But I just think it's play it by ear. If it sounds weirdly off, change it. But you can generally tell if it works or not. To my ear, that sounds like it's all kind of interacting and working in there. So, okay. So that's the groove. We've got a big 909 here as well. This is sort of like a pickup. You can see that this 909 hat doesn't come in all the time. It sort of picks up halfway through the groove. If we listen to music, the sound taking over me. That comes in. Now, I've got to say, Mark Knight's sample pack are amazing for these kind of big open hats. So that's my sort of de facto place where I go straight to a Mark Knight sample pack. He's got the best 909 hats and hat loops going. Now we come down here, we've got choppy beats. Let's have a listen to what's going on here again. And if you put that with this, we put a kick drum in there. One sec. See how that's all working together. The choppy beats, again, this is a Darius Sarosian from one of his sample packs. He's got these very skippy loops. Almost garage kind of skip to it. And that goes really nice with the main loop there. Onto the bass. Now, the bass and the sample, again, is something that Joe brought in here, and we actually sort of accidentally came across this sample. I was just flicking through. Ableton's got this really great feature that allows you to move a sort of loop point around within it. And I was just moving the loop point a little bit inside this sample until eventually we came up with this loop. Now, you would not be able to recognize where this is from. And yeah, so we found this sample, which goes like this. And if I play it over here when it's fully open, you'll hear the sample. And that was created by moving this loop point around. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4 beats, 1 bar. And so I just moved the loop point around until it landed in this very weird place. It's not part of the actual original sample at all. So that's the sample. And then the bass line is derived from that sample. So what we did is I put that into here. We've got a heavy sidechain on, and then it's been heavily filtered, and you get this kind of sound. Now, yeah, and there's the sample. Put that with the kick. So that is taken from the sample. The two parts work together. The disco sample. So that's a little tip for you. If you do want to find some really interesting bass lines, find a disco loop, it can be 2 beats, can be 1 bar, can be as long as you want it, and then filter away all the top stuff and just sort of leaving the bass line free underneath. Which is a really great way of getting to like a very groovy bass line that you wouldn't be able to make or play or synthesize. It's just something that is impossible to get without using a sample. I even believe that the crash is burnt into this loop that we've been using here, the H beats. That's burnt into the loop. So I didn't even put a crash in. So like I say, it's a very, very quick production. Next thing, musical-wise, musical stuff would be this high string. It's just a simple kind of, the oldest trick in the book. Add in a high string at some point just for added tension. And you'll hear here, we've got this siren. Now, this is one thing that I did spend a lot of time on. This was based on Basement Jaxx, actually. Basement Jaxx, the track is Fly Life. In Fly Life, there's a very interesting synth work. He's doing all that stuff, pitch bending, moving around. So this is my sort of interpretation of the Basement Jaxx sound, if we ever listen to that, using Serum. You can see we've got... You can see the pitch bend moving there. And then you'll see that there's lots of automation in here. You can see the pitch bend automation. And then we've got as well an LFO, which is will start to actually modulate the filter cutoff. At the moment, the filter's fully open, so it's not modulating it. But you can see here that when I start to bring the filter cutoff down, that the LFO will modulate it. And it goes like this. So that is, we've got an LFO modulating the filter cutoff, and then I'm actually then automating the speed of the LFO. So it starts off, is it on LFO 2, I believe it is? Yeah, it starts off at this speed, 1/8, and at the end you can see there it goes all the way up to 164, which is, you can see that moving there. So combination of an LFO modulating the filter, but then we are automating the speed of the LFO over time, as well as the pitch bend, which gets automated. And you can see that there rising. It goes all the way from its original pitch up an octave. And I've got to say, this is my favorite part of the track. So it was really worth spending a bit of time modulating and getting the sound right. You can also tell as well that, look, it starts from a saw wave. This is the basic de facto default waveform that it loads up, and it's just a sawtooth wave. And I mean, we've added like effects, chorus, delay, reverb there. So it's nothing special in terms of that. We've got some unison on the actual oscillator itself. Nothing special there, but it's the way that the filter's modulated and then the pitch bend there. So once you kind of understand synthesis a bit, it's not hard to make this sound. I'm quite proud of that. That was a load of fun making it. Right, and then let's get down now. So that's the musical parts. Have we got another siren? The siren over here does the same thing. It's just... pitch bends going on in there. Now we're onto the vocal. This is where Joe came in. Joe came with some sort of pre-written lyrics as well as a load of samples. And so this is Joe's voice. Let me find a section of where she's actually talking here. Look. Now we've manipulated it heavily. So we were kind of thinking of making it sound like a man rather than a woman.
The mind is calling me. My soul, the rhythm will set me free. The dance floor is my sanctuary. The music, the sound taking over me.
All right, so she sounds quite manly there. She doesn't normally sound like that. We've actually pitched her down by -3 semitones there. What I've also done as well is duplicated that same recording. Now, it might be a double track, although the waveforms look very similar. Yeah, look, I've duplicated that same recording, and that one isn't pitched down. So this is her natural pitch.
Inner mind is calling me.
Just take that off. This is the natural pitch.
Inner mind is calling me. My soul.
That's what Joe actually sounds like. And then you put the two together.
Inner mind is calling me.
And that's the -3, which is basically, because it's a spoken vocal as well, it's not that much to worry about in terms of pitch. So we were able to just kind of move them around and get this very interesting sound. Together they sound sort of quite robotic, a bit masculine, dare I say it. You can't really tell. It's quite an ambiguous sounding voice. You can't tell if it's man, woman. You know, it's like...
Inner mind is calling me.
It adds a nice sort of harmonic to it. Now, I have got really nice sort of recording setup in my studio, which helps when you're recording vocals. Some people like to just record it on their phone. There's nothing wrong with that. That can work. It has a character. But this has been really nicely recorded using some expensive kit. So, which meant we didn't have to do too much to it in terms of, EQ, etc. And again, because of time restraints, we're straight into this one-stop shop plugin, which is the Waves CLA vocal plugin here. We put that on there. It's probably one of the presets as well. Start Me Up. Yeah, so this is what it sounds like without it. If we solo it.
Inner mind is calling me.
It sounds quite nice. But with it, we're adding quite a lot of stereo width.
Inner mind is calling me. My soul.
Right, and then we've got this UAD Verve thing, which is basically a tape modeling plugin, which is really nice. Adds a bit of extra juice to it. And then I use my sort of effects racks here down at the bottom, reverb and delay chain. These are sort of for spot effects that we can throw in there.
Inner mind is calling me. My soul, the rhythm will set me free. The dance floor is my
sanctuary. So not a lot of stuff, you know. It was very well. Oh yeah, a bit of glue compression on the actual vocal tracks themselves.
Inner mind.
So look at that. So a little bit of compression, and we're using the isotope vocal doubler.
Inner mind is calling
on both of those, just to get a bit of extra sort of voices into it.
Inner mind is calling.
Then sent to this group here, which is then the CLA has added this tape. Not much else. So there's not a lot going on there, but it does sound quite processed.
Inner mind is calling me. My soul, the rhythm will set me free. The dance floor.
Cool. Now, you'll also notice as well, back to the beats, we've got some really kind of interesting little fills here. And this is from an amazing sample pack by a guy called Shovel, who was the percussionist for M People. And his sample pack is on Defected, which, if you are interested in that, you can't get it on Splice, though, so you'd have to go searching for it. But he's one of the best percussionists known to man, and yeah, these are the fills from his pack. These kind of stuff, and there's loads. So good. And there's another little vocal here. We've got this screaming vocal, which is, we've got the vocal loop going on here as well. If you take a listen to this, it's like, it's over here, yeah. Filtered, panned using the Sound Toys Pan Man. Lots of filter there. I've got some LFO modulation on the filter. So it's kind of moving around. Again, a sample that Joe brought in. It's actually one of her jingles. A friend of hers recorded a jingle for Joe for when she was doing the radio stations. And we just took a little snippet of it, looped it, put it through these little effects here, bit of filtering, panning, and that really sits in the track really nicely. Other little samples. What else have we got? Vocal cuts. Let's take a listen to these. These are
over me. The sound.
You know, loads of delay feedback on there. So these are just chops from the original vocal there.
Over me. The sound.
It's so funny. You really can't tell that it's a lady singing that or saying that. These loops are cool as well. These are just again, great. Ableton lets you sort of select a section and then you can just loop it indefinitely and pull it out. one of the beautiful things about Ableton.
Over me, over me, over me, over me, over me.
And then we can filter it in and out there. That's usually then filtered with just the Ableton Auto filter. So we've got cuts, we've got some loops, and then with some little snippets of the vocal as well, which we throw in before sort of notable sections. If I put the
music, the sound taking over me.
Yeah, and then some extra little bit of whooshes. There's not really much in terms of effects here, like sort of audio effects, just
music, the sound.
And that's it. There's a snare roll taken from, I've done the lazy man's approach, which is to sample one of Mark Knight's snare rolls instead of making my own. Again, he's got the best snares in those packs, so arguably better than what you can make yourself. So that's why I opted to use that, as well as time. And then quickly, let's take a look at like the way it's been mastered. Just a very quick overview of this. So here's my mix chain, sort of mix bus master chain, which is what's already set up as in my template. So when I make a track, it literally mixes itself as I go. All I need to do is balance the levels and it's kind of mixed and mastered. I prefer to work that way because I believe that if you send your track off, sort of you mix it beautifully and then you send it off to the mastering engineer, he puts all of these, or he or she puts all of their stuff on. And sometimes it can come back sounding wildly different. So I prefer to mix it through a mastering chain. Now that is again contentious. Not everybody wants to do it that way, but I think that for me it works better because of the time constraints that I've got as well, working on music. And yeah, so it consists of an EQ. I just take out some low end there, add a little bit of high end. We're into the Oxford Inflator, one of the best plugins ever. Make sure you get this. It's always on sale. Wait for the sale. It goes down to 20 quid. Get it. It's ace. And then we're into, look, then I've used the UAD SSL. Now it's disabled because I'm using it through the UAD stuff, but that's the best one for me. And with this, we've got this plugin, which is awesome. It's called Equalizer by Waste Factory. Basically, it's an automatic kind of equalizer which attempts to make everything flat, which sounds great. That's that equalizer. And then finally at the very end, I use the Slate FXG, which is probably one of the best limiters. There's also the Pro L, which I'm not using in this instance, but I like to sort of try the both and see which one I like best. But the FXG always pips it for me because it's not only is it a really nice limiter, but it's got, you can add some low punch and detail back into it using these two little knobs here, which is sort of like add some transients. Sometimes a limiter can take away the transients. It's nice to add them back in. That's it. And as I say, it's mixed as we go. And yeah. In fact, this wasn't even mastered. This is my master. The version that you'll be listening to came straight out of this session. And it was a very quick session, but all down to the samples that Jo brought in. She is amazing, and I love working with her because she always turns up with some real good ideas, samples, and we just hit the ground running and off we go. And the track writes itself, basically. And it's always such a pleasure. This one turned out to be such a banger. I cannot wait to actually hear it and be able to play it myself. And it's an actual absolute weapon. So yeah, make sure you check it out on Toolroom Trax.